All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Pfeiffer. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. It's a beautiful day in Bentonville, Arkansas. And we are so excited to welcome Ryan King, who's the founder and CEO of BlueRyse, back to continue his series focused on winning with Walmart. And today, his guest is Alicia Marshia, who leads Walmart strategic growth at Teikametrics. They're going to be talking about the near-term implications of AI and e-commerce advertising. Just a few things to cover before we get started. First of all, I want to recognize some great sponsors of this series. Ryan's been, as I mentioned, a great partner in getting this kicked off. We've got some exciting things to announce in the weeks and months ahead. But just want to thank BlueRyse, of course, our founding partner, but also Content Status, Wabata, Infinite, Teikametrics, of course, and Infinity Blue. Great companies, great partners. Second thing I want to share is just to encourage everyone, this is not intended to be a presentation, but instead a conversation. So if you're joining live, we hope that you will actively participate in the conversation by asking questions, offering any insights based on your own experience. You can do that simply by clicking on the Q&A button in Zoom and submit those questions or comments in writing. Lastly, just want to share that the opinions or recommendations expressed by the experts leading and participating in these discussions we host are solely their own and not necessarily those of Conversations on Retail. Before acting on those opinions or recommendations by those experts, make sure you consider their suitability for your circumstances. So with that said, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you. We're so glad you're here.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for the introduction. And Alicia, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited for our conversation. We got to talk a bit yesterday, kind of in preparation for this conversation. It was fun for me. I hope it'll be fun for everybody else as well as we dig a little bit deeper. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Certainly. So before we get into kind of some of the questions we've kind of talked about that we thought would be interesting for everybody to participate in, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, can you tell us about you, kind of your role a bit and experience so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a pleasure to meet everyone. As Matt shared, my name's Alicia Marshia, and I oversee our Walmart strategic growth team here at Teikametrics. So I work directly with suppliers and sellers alike to better understand what are their current goals with Walmart.com, whether that's to grow their current market share or accelerate ad sales. Our team is focused on ensuring a smooth onboarding experience, and I act as a liaison with our relationship with Walmart Connect. So work really closely with them to understand what new products are coming down the pipeline and on the roadmap that are going to, in turn, support suppliers and sellers in reaching their goals.
Fantastic. Well, you've definitely got your finger on the pulse then of what's been happening. And so specifically with this conversation today, we're talking about the near-term implications of AI on retail media, e-commerce advertising. AI is obviously, everybody's talking about it. It's been making a lot of buzz in this last year with ChatGPT or other elements like that. There's a wide world we could talk about when it comes to AI, but specifically, what we're talking about is the basic function in many ways of AI is to take complexity and simplify, and whether that's to inform decision-making or to increase productivity, all those things. And specifically in the world we're talking about right now is AI with relation to retail media, specifically Walmart. And what does that mean now? So we're going to try and keep the conversation from, thinking about what could this be in 10 years? Are robots going to be creating brands for us? But really practically felt needs right now, dealing with the complexities that stakeholders are facing in the marketplace. What role does AI play? And what are some of the things we should be thinking about? And ultimately, I hope and I expect, based on our previous conversations too, that we'll all walk away from these conversations with some actionable insights of what this could mean for us. And so I appreciate that. And that kind of frames our conversation. One thing that I was excited about in this conversation with you is Teika has been around for a while, right? And kind of one of an early mover in a couple areas, early mover in relationship with Walmart and Walmart Connect, and an early partner there, and also an early mover in this world of AI before it really got to be the big buzz that everybody has now. So I think my first question would be kind of based on that perspective. Could you describe, maybe set the scene for what you've seen in the trends with Walmart in general, or Walmart Connect, retail media? Where do we stand right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of simplifying AI because it is such a complex topic. And that's our primary goal here at Teikametrics. But for suppliers and sellers right now, the advertising has become so hyper-focused and personalized and multifaceted. And so now with the ability to personalize ad messaging, target specific audiences, and track your ROI, the introduction of AI has made that much more effective. And so, more specifically with Walmart, I think as far as trends that we're seeing within the retail media space is competition. So, I think for a long time, Walmart was kind of this area where brands were either in store and not really thinking about it as that true e-commerce marketplace as it's become today. We've seen since 2016, over 150,000 sellers have joined the platform, and 35% of that group has joined in the last year alone, which has resulted in some really interesting KPI trends. At Teikametrics, we support multiple retail media channels. And so what we see when we compare Walmart to other players in the space, the average cost per click in comparison to another primary player in this type of retail media space is almost half. However, that average order value that we're seeing with Walmart is about $42 in 2022. And so while we're seeing conversion rates are continuing to increase across all marketplaces, we are seeing strong indicators for 2023 that Walmart will really become this place for suppliers to keep a really close pulse in reaching new audiences and their current audiences. And I would say the last item that we're seeing is, of course, like back in 2020 with Walmart, we only had access to sponsored products. Walmart's now since introduced multiple ad types, including sponsored brands, display opportunities. And so this creates a more diverse way to engage with your audience, but also additional nuance when evaluating your ability to measure the effectiveness of your strategy. And so we're seeing a lot change in a very short period of time, which makes Walmart a really exciting place to be.
Yeah, certainly. And so just kind of recap kind of what are some of the things I heard you saying was, and we've seen this as well, as Walmart has pushed in heavy, and it has been for a while, but as certainly the acceleration of the last few years into the marketplace here, brand stakeholders are having to deal with multiple channels, multiple modalities of selling, whether it's physical brick and mortar in store or if it's online, D2C, which marketplaces that are not D2C, and how do they incorporate all those into their multi-channel strategies? The terms going from, do we call this omni-channel, or do we just call this one Walmart is one strategy, or is it e-commerce, or is it just commerce now? Is this just the state of reality for most brands? And that seems to be where we're getting. And so then zoom into Walmart Marketplace, and you've got just the increasing complexity in Walmart with advertising. You're not the sole advertiser anymore if you were an early adopter and an incumbent brand, and now you're positioned to compete against challenger brands that are coming in third-party marketplace, all these things. And so the complexity and the placements, all the things are growing. So based on that, the key metric, so stakeholders responsible for saying, okay, retail media, I'm going to drive brand awareness or whatever it may be. The key metric often thrown out is ROAS, is how can we hit a certain ROAS, or are we tracking to a certain ROAS? What is your opinion when it comes to that metric as the guiding metric when you have discussions with brands in light of the complexities we're facing?
Absolutely. I mean, I understand why a ROAS is that anchor. I think for pure marketers at heart, it's the easiest benchmark, I think, to measure most effectively and allocate budgets accordingly based on that performance. But here at Teikametrics, the way we look at ROAS is similarly to your engine temperature light on your car. So obviously, we want to keep our ROAS in a position that enables us to continue to grow and scale. And we want to watch as that kind of either goes too hot or too cold to understand, are we effectively marching to the right beat of the drum? I think from our perspective, and tying back to the common enemy around the introduction of new ad types, ROAS can no longer be that sufficient and primary metric to evaluate the effectiveness of your advertising. When we look at the advertising funnel and we talk specifically about sponsored products, yes, that is a conversion-heavy focused opportunity and a way for us to capture demand on site. But as we move further up in the funnel and look at sponsored brands and display, measuring those ad types just solely based on return on ad spend can potentially put you in a position where you're leaving dollars on the table, given that those are more brand awareness focused tactics and in a way for you to increase your reach. So key metrics that we look at here at Teikametrics beyond return on ad spend are new to brand, which is an awesome KPI that Walmart has rolled out and enabled us to gain access to through API connections. Cost per engagement with video. Video is an amazing opportunity for many brands that have been opted into these programs, as well as total advertising cost of sale. I know on other platforms and even on Walmart, we look specifically at ACoS as that driver, but we know that that's just a measurement between your ad sales and your ad spend. What we want to ensure is happening with your ad dollars is that's effectively also growing your current organic position. And so TACoS is a primary metric we talk a lot about, and it gives us an idea or a pulse on the incrementality of our ad spend, regardless of ad type. And so ROAS is great. I'm not saying it's not a good metric to look at, but I think it can be limiting in scope and ensuring you're measuring the right KPIs.
Gotcha. Yeah. So kind of to further the illustration you're saying is it's the engine temperature, but you still need to know where you're driving, where's the map, and where are your waypoints, all those other things. The car's running, but you don't know where you're going. You're not going to get there. So that's great. Well, so to make it more concrete, some of the challenge in this conversation is making what is theoretical in some ways directly applicable and getting into real concrete scenarios here. So kind of the three, we talked about kind of three major scenarios. A lot of the audience members and others from the channel are 1P owned. They have modulars in store. And so a common scenario is for brands looking to support their current assortment. And so when we talk about the nature of retail media, the complexity and the potential impact of AI, what would you say kind of the considerations are from your experience, considerations are for those types of brands? Maybe what are some of the challenges? And then specifically, what are those near-term implications of AI? How does that address the challenges? How does it inform them to experiment, whatever it may be? What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. A majority of our partners are here at Teikametrics are suppliers with product in store. And so this is a conversation we have quite regularly. I think for brands, when they're thinking about where their customers are, they're thinking brick and mortar. And so how can I make sure I have the right placement on shelf and what products am I sending to Walmart or making sure my merchant is buying? But when we think about advertising here at Teikametrics, we also understand that the closest Walmart store to any of your customer base is in your pocket because Walmart's rolled out their expansive app, which also enables, and we've seen that grow. It was a top downloaded app during Q4 of last year. And so we want to take a holistic approach to .com to measure that impact on in-store sales and growth. So when I think about key considerations for suppliers with product in store, the first measurement when we talk about getting somebody on board is looking at their current share of voice or brand awareness for their products today. So those stores that are available in store are also available online. So understanding what is that current share of voice, not just for their brand terms, but also high value keywords, and measuring who else is bidding on those keywords and where do you stack rank today is instrumental in developing your go-to-market strategy as it pertains to .com. The second is, of course, Walmart has made a series of enhancements over the course of the last 18 months, one of which being improvements in search term relevancy, which now enables products to show within search and grid across multiple instances on a given page. And so we also want to take a look at your product listings directly, understand what key attributes may be missing that are impacting your organic position on site. That way we can balance how much reliance we have on our ad spend versus where can we focus or how can we position or where should we place this product in its current life cycle. And then finally, budget allocation. Of course, with our products that are in store, we have our hero products that are going to be top drivers in overall revenue. But of course, there's always an opportunity to get maybe some of the long tail within our catalog in store. And so what's important to understand is what percent of our current margin are we willing to invest in our advertising based on that product's life cycle? And so when I talk about where AI can help improve upon this, we work with many partners who are trying to balance a large product catalog and also combined with seasonal variability. We're in Walmart Plus Week. So of course, we're seeing conversion rates at an all-time high on the channel. We're seeing ad sales grow. Without the application of AI, we're missing the opportunity to grow those KPIs in a more aggressive way. Because at the core, when we think about AI here, bidding is at the core of ad optimization. And so, but that requires many data points, including product margin, your current life cycle, conversion rates, sales, and price changes. And so that humans alone do not have the time or resources to do the data modeling required to understand what is the true value you should be bidding at any given time. And so that's where AI can help empower suppliers to better accurately understand and ensure you're getting in front of the right consumer at the right time when we're most likely to drive that sale.
Gotcha. So it's placement, so to speak, of timing and investment. So where, questions of where on the search result grid should you be? Should you be competing for position 1? Is that the most profitable? Is that aligning with your goals, or are you content with position 11 on the page for sponsored? But you're also talking about timing of conversion. When is the maximum conversion? So potentially day parting, those kind of things as far as when you're going to up and down bid, those kind of elements. Do you have any examples like what kind of performance have you seen in this regard? Kind of drilling down into real world scenarios. Do you have any scenarios around that with brands that have seen an increase in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned day parting, because that's kind of the key supplier top of mind for me. So one of our partners came to Teikametrics, given that they had a product catalog that expanded over 2,000 individual SKUs with both in-store activation and on .com. And so when they first approached Teikametrics, their primary concern was just the sheer size of their catalog and the seasonal variability of their business, how we would be able to kind of balance this idea of maximizing conversion rate and growth during key period of seasonality and still adopt an always on approach. And so when we first onboarded this customer, we looked at their entire campaign structure and identified an opportunity for us to leverage Flywheel, which is the name of our proprietary technology, to programmatically create campaigns in a one-to-one structure for their priority items. So when I talked about a one-to-one campaign structure, for every product, we want to develop an automatic bidding campaign and a manual or keyword bidding campaign, as Walmart will reference to that. That initially gives us the groundwork that we need to then build and expand upon that to a 5-to-1 structure, where we take a more myopic focus on match type and audience segmentation. So when we think about audience segmentation, how are consumers finding my product? So are they coming to Walmart and searching more generic keywords, or are they looking and finding my brand directly through brand search? And building out campaigns that enable us to migrate from a keyword, high-performing keyword in an auto campaign to a broad match type within a brand keyword campaign. And so that's not scalable when you have 2,000 products within your product catalog. And so leveraging technology, specifically AI bidding technology, allows us to identify really quickly what is the appropriate campaign structure based on your product. And then from there, apply bidding algorithms, taking into consideration factors like your costs of goods associated with each of your at the SKU level, and the current sales, as well as backing into to create kind of what's that before we begin advertising, your pre-advertising gross margin, which then enables you to then properly assign what percent of those dollars do we want to allocate to ad spend. Day parting is interesting. You can suffer with algorithmic penalties by leveraging day parting. And so we always have this conversation around when can we leverage that and when is it appropriate. With using AI, and specifically our platform, we use like deep learning AI. So not only, more commonly, we're talking with brands who are coming from a rules-based algorithmic AI technology. So if my return on ad spend is X, reduce or increase my CPCs by Y. And that's all well and fine, but we know that that's just looking at things on the surface. We want to understand what's our average order value, what's that predicted conversion rate based on the product's life cycle, profit margin, et cetera. And so our technology enables us to understand the variability in those metrics multiple times per day. If and when we don't have the budget to support an always-on strategy, we use AI to better understand when are those maximums in those variables. So specifically conversion rate, when should we, and time of day of week, time of month, to better understand when should we implement day parting on what strategic schedule. And with this particular supplier that came on board, we utilized day parting and this specific campaign structure focused on priority items and their seasonal products, and grew about 167% year on year for that same quarter, which resulted in about $260,000 in ad sales that we were able to drive. So there's a lot of opportunity that comes with leveraging AI to better understand each of the attributes that are really instrumental to you building the right ad strategy.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's fantastic result. And obviously there's a lot of complexity there. I think some of the takeaways I'm hearing, or some of the insights I'm hearing you talking about is, we're not just talking purely bid up or bid down, get the placement up or get down. Is there an hour a day that I was bidding 45 cents per click, but now I can bid 30 or just turn it off for this hour and turn it back on? The extra layer of complexity is velocity or memory in the algorithm, so to speak, of have you been running consistently, and is there enough ongoing, is there continuity disruption in whether or not you're going to regain position by bidding the same when you turn it back on, those kind of implications. So you're saying the way that AI is helping in some ways is analyzing all those data points as well to identify what's the potential opportunity cost even of turning off a bid, something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's great about the AI that we leverage here at Teikametrics is it does have elements of machine learning where we can look at and historically benchmark past events, and then that enables us to predict future events with the utmost accuracy. So when we do this for brands, we're looking at tentpole events, and specifically, for example, during Walmart Plus Week, we know that conversion rate is going to spike and be at an all-time high. But what's really instrumental to understand for brands is if you're not leveraging AI currently with bid optimization, what happens is right after Walmart Plus Week ends and that conversion rate starkly drops off, you can have runaway ad spend, which to your point is this loss opportunity cost. And so using AI to help balance that ensures that you're not seeing profit leakage. And that's a primary thing that we're looking at is when we're maximizing efficiency.
Gotcha. So I think that's there's a lot to dig in here, and that's maybe we can keep on this conversation. I'll take one aside to mention, if you do have any questions, I recognize several names in the audience of people who are very familiar with retail media and those things. If there are any questions, feel free to post in here. And we'll address this as this come up naturally in the conversation as well. We'll also have some Q&A time at the end here, but would love to hear questions from others in the group at this time as well. But as we're waiting on that, maybe so we're talking about maybe there's obviously a lot of complexity even when it comes to purely retail media. You know, how you're going to compete, how you're going to compete, seasonality versus competition, all those elements. But then there's also broader implications as you're talking about on the platform, listing elements, those kind of things, as well as and its impact on PPC, those things as other data points to be tracking as you're bidding and advertising. And so talked about one on the algorithm side. This is where I'm keying in off. This is the algorithm on the kind of the Walmart Connect algorithm, so to speak, on the advertising side. But there's also other algorithms at play on the marketplace that can have a secondary impact on PPC. So regarding listing quality or whatever it may be, that signals keyword relevancy and efficiency of spend. So how is AI, is that being incorporated? Are you seeing how that's incorporated, or how that relationship, or how is AI assisting in those layers as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought up kind of the product attributes specifically with that OLQ score, since Walmart's kind of made a lot of emphasis, or put a lot of emphasis on this as a benchmark for when you look at promotion of that product. And that's a primary metric. So when we onboard brands, we take a full audit of their listings to better understand what is that current product mix. And not only what is that current product mix, but what are they categorized under using the Walmart taxonomy. Second to that is, what is the review count for each of the products? So ideally, we're seeing products that have 4 or more 5-star reviews, and that each of the products have at least 7 to 10 reviews before we start promotion, because all of those factors play into that OLQ score, their online listing quality score. And with the enhancements of the search term relevancy, that becomes even more important. I think historically, Walmart has recommended brands begin advertising as long as they're maintaining a 40+% high OLQ score. That benchmark's recently moved up to 80%. And so when we look at brands getting started, we're also trying to evaluate that KPI. And that's also the first place we'll go when we're troubleshooting performance factors as a part of like ROAS benchmarks and things like that. I think the other piece is where we're leveraging AI today is we've recently rolled out enhancements using AI to better understand if we've made an adjustment within a product listing attribute, say it's the product title, product description, content that's listed there. We can then mark that as an event within our technology and then measure the implications of this performance. So specifically measure what was that improvement on return on ad spend, what was that improvement on ad sales and conversion rate once that attribute was adjusted, and measure that kind of pre and post optimization. Because it's not just your ad dollars at play. We know that there's so much legwork that goes in ahead of time with those product listings that are going to help you be less reliant on the extensive dollars required to kind of promote your products online.
Yeah, so you're using it to track those moments in time that those things are happening, and then seeing the implications. So we're getting into the growth hacking, A/B testing, figuring out iteratively what's fine tuning the performance here. I think one of the biggest challenges there can be let's dig into that a little bit, because speaking with someone previously, talking about the question was asked, how many experiments have you run to maximize product success, and did you call it an experiment before you started, or did you just label it afterwards because it just didn't perform? And so but it's crucial to test and to revisit. But that involves a lot of data. That involves a lot of tracking it, digesting it in a format that's usable. Ultimately, there's a stakeholder from a brand or supplier on the other side that needs somehow to see the information and make decisions. What does that look like? Got a lot of complexity. You're talking about testing and tracking behaviors. What does interface look like? Does is it a bunch of numbers, or what has you seen? Maybe here's the question, I think. What have you seen as best practice, maybe for some people, stakeholders or brands, when it comes to how they're leveraging this data, this testing, this AI, and what are the tools, or what are the types of instruments, measurements they're seeing that's giving them the most impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, I have the most expertise on our platform. So I kind of talk about what we're trying to do here is kind of become that one single source of truths, especially given that I know the group is primarily suppliers and sellers, but when they're all also on other platforms. And so understanding how a SKU is performing on Walmart, while it's important, we also want to understand kind of what those metrics look like on other channels. And so leveraging a data analytics platform that also has AI technology built into it is really important. And so to your point, we don't want to just get a complete download. And this is what happens with brands who are using Walmart's self-serve platform, which is making advancements, but again, still is limiting in that application. And I think that's the piece. Like all of our brands that we work with today have access to a breadth of data, but the piece that's difficult is making that data actionable. And so leveraging AI and a platform that can house all of your advertising data and then provide recommendations based on that data, not only is time savings, but also improves your accuracy and efficiency with that ad dollar. And so within our platform, not only are we warehousing your data, we're providing you data visualization to better understand trends in those KPIs. The most primary KPIs that we look at, of course, tacos, return on ad spend, ad sales, ad revenue, and things of that nature. But then also looking at more intangible KPIs like share of voice and marking kind of the trends in those data points through engagement with a direct account manager. I think the one challenge with brands today is looking at AI as that one silver bullet to help solve all their problems. From our perspective, we know that AI is only as smart as the instructions you provide it. And I think a lot of people in the big conversation, especially with the introduction of ChatGPT, is, well, data analysts no longer have a job. And that's not necessarily true. I think for brands, when they're coming in, you want to make sure that you've thought through all of the applicable details around product mix, your go-to-market strategy for that product mix, the product lifecycle, development or introduction of new products, product launching, and then leverage the AI to maximize your overall returns versus just letting the AI kind of run and control everything. And that's, you can end up with profit leakage in a bad way if you kind of relinquish all controls to technology. And so that's where we always have that human in the loop element as a core part of our model.
Yeah, that's an important point and good point. What comes to mind is, everybody's talking about, if you go to LinkedIn, a lot of our members are on LinkedIn, active there, and all the posts seem to be how to generate outbound sales or anything through cold emails on LinkedIn through ChatGPT. But one of the issues is hallucination. Well, you've got the issue of garbage in, garbage out on one hand. If you don't really feed it the right things or know where you're aiming, are you going to get something that's useful in the back end? Like you said, it's not silver bullet. There's no switch to flip and say, solve my retail media goals. That'd be beautiful. But that's not there right now. But secondly, there's a hallucination effect, of we see it in the general, not the general learning model, but the specific learning models of text to, response, those things. So one question I have is so there's the best practice of being clear, maybe within the organization, of what are our goals? What's our market strategy? What phase, life cycle of the product are we in? And what KPIs would make sense? And how do we track towards those for success? There's also, and so those are important. There's also, the accuracy of AI. So one of the big questions would be kind of like, do I trust AI to make decisions or make these recommendations to me? Is it hallucinating? Is it not? When you talk about predictive models. So what are you seeing with regard to accuracy? Obviously, I'm talking to a company who's built their model around it and is obviously invested, but and you don't have to give me hard stats or anything like that. But if you have them, that's great. What are you seeing as far as with the accuracy of the predictive or the recommendations? What would you say there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's always a challenge for brands and marketers to really validate the data more consistently, especially when they're looking at say a Walmart platform versus a third-party platform that they're leveraging today. I think when we talk about accuracy, we look at the predictability within our AI bidder, and we've recently rolled out enhancements to our conversion rate forecaster that enables us to better accurately understand variability in conversion rate based on time of day of week, seasonality, and category. And what we've seen with the rollout of that is a close to from a forecasted conversion rate to an observed conversion rate is almost a 1-to-1 match. And so I think from our perspective, like I said, when we have brands that aren't leveraging AI today and bid optimization being a core aspect of ad optimization, you run the risk of potentially leaving dollars on the table because we don't have the capacity to do the data modeling required. We see that for every product, we see about 50 keywords that are generating revenue, which when we do the math out, really requires over 180 different bid optimizations to take place in a given time frame in just a 30-day period. And that's just something humanly possible that we as marketers don't have the bandwidth to be kind of going in and making those adjustments. And by the time we have the opportunity to evaluate that data, the data since changed. And so with accuracy and with AI, you can ensure with accuracy that you're bidding to the right value per click, which I think that's where I could say with 100% certainty, we're pretty spot on with, which is why we see the results that we do for our brands that are coming on board.
Gotcha. And so AI is handling those details. You've seen a lot of accuracy, and you spoke about the human element. And so the human element also is making sure you're setting goals appropriately. Where else are those points of interaction? The data analyst or the human element and the robots, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we always lay the groundwork when we're working with a new supplier is we don't want to turn the AI on right away. The biggest thing is understanding your goals, and understanding your audience, your product mix, and your audience segmentation. So when we talk about goals, we're not just talking about your return on ad spend. We're trying to understand what is your primary metric for your conversations with merchant side as well. And how has your GMV grown year on year, and what has changed in your product mix that may have driven either that growth or that decline or contraction. And so once we kind of have that framework to better understand, okay, if our primary action is to increase market share, what variables are we going to measure to understand that success? And so a lot of that conversation is driven through the data analyst and the key supplier. From there, it's when we start to tailor, okay, based on our strategy of growing market share by X% year on year, that's when we deploy our AI technology to build campaigns on your behalf based on the best recommendations. And we input those targets within the platform to then better optimize bids. And then we're not just letting the AI kind of run on its own. There's consistent optimization done by the analyst who's coming in and evaluating, are we trending in the right direction? Where are there keywords that we can harvest based on AI recommendations? And then from there, what are the trends and share of voice that we're working towards to better understand, should we isolate keywords into their own campaign and optimize that a little bit closer versus keeping that keyword in a SKU level campaign and understanding that dynamic there. And so that's where kind of it's always that push and pull with the human in the loop and the AI. The AI is really there to surface the opportunity, and the human in the loop is really there to kind of take the action and apply that strategy.
Gotcha. So just a continued conversation, so to speak, between the two with the various inputs. That's really helpful to hear how the give and take goes, how the back and forth is going. We've been talking within, the scenario of, and it is applicable in a lot of scenarios, but we're talking brick and mortar scenario that's looking to support your modular. One of the other scenarios that still involves brick and mortar, but also starts pulling in this conversation around third-party marketplace when we're talking about .com. What that looks like is the ongoing trend of introducing further assortment for a couple of reasons, maybe, introducing assortment onto the third-party marketplace just to broaden the catalog in cooperation with merchants and with Walmart to bring more assortment to shoppers, and maybe that and just incremental sales and growth in that way, or starting there as a means of entry into further modulars so proving out, so to speak, the work. Are there any other considerations there in that kind of scenario? Are you seeing how this has helped in that regard that's maybe different than what we've been talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a supplier, or I should say a seller. So I'll talk about the latter example. So kind of your third-party marketplace seller who is hoping to get in modular. And that's kind of a top track that we have regularly with marketplace. So 3P sellers directly. Walmart has no idea what products to bring in store until they see that performance online. So .com is the means to get on shelf. And so when we're talking with sellers directly about kind of their overarching strategy, we talk about the power of three. So one, are you an approved seller on marketplace? And if not, why? And second is, how are you getting the products to Walmart? So a lot of brands may have historically tried Walmart fulfillment services in the past and may not have had the best experience and have shied away from it. And so Walmart fulfillment services has, of course, rolled out a number of enhancements to the platform, very transparent cost structure. And so leveraging and better understanding, maybe you don't bring over all of your products to WFS, but you test in maybe top portions of your assortment. And then from there, tapping on Walmart Connect. It's really that getting on marketplace, understanding fulfillment, and then from there, applying advertising is key. And so then once we get to this place where we have advertising turned on, what ad tactics are we using? We want to make sure we're maximizing that investment on sponsored products, because again, that's going to get us higher conversions. We're going to move up in organic positions, which is only going to indicate to Walmart even stronger that this is a great product to have in store, which then opens up the doors to have the conversations with merchants and things like that. I think the flip side that you shared was the supplier who's looking to broaden their scope and potentially open up marketplace for a myriad of reasons. I think the primary reason we see a lot of brands take that approach is, one, they're hybrid on other marketplaces, or two, say their merchant no longer wants to carry a specific product, but they know that that product works well, and they want to make sure they're able to still support that product online. And so they open up the doors to marketplace. And so the third example would be kind of a supplier who's just interested in broadening their overall product assortment, and they're testing that into Walmart Marketplace. I think the primary challenge with a supplier going to marketplace is the competition and competing with themselves. And so we talk a lot with suppliers that are making this transition. What does that product assortment look like that will remain on modular through 1P true supplier versus what is going to marketplace? If there's overlap, why and how are we going to make that distinction so we're not inadvertently competing against ourselves and inflating costs? The second piece is buy box. So just like every other marketplace, we have to fight for the buy box on Walmart as well. And so better understanding what is our buy box win rate and leveraging reporting to better understand that and make adjustments either within our pricing or fulfillment type, tapping on WFS to improve that overall and get access to that pro seller badge. Those are items that we start to talk about with our suppliers when they're kind of trying to navigate introducing product listings on true marketplace, so as a 3P.
So yeah, figuring out how do they complement sales in store and not cannibalize through 3P offering and those things. How do they identify the competitors, those elements, and which products may work? So when in that regard, so you've got a scenario where someone has maybe data already and we're talking in their media side, and what's interesting is we're talking about retail media is informing even assortment and future decisions where retail media is not yet. But it's valuable data and how that can do so. How is AI informing? So let's say can't quite use AI without the data there, but let's assume data's there on the 1P side, and someone's trying to explore what else do we bring to marketplace. How does that? What's the best use case scenario in it? And maybe asking you to restate what you just said, but framing in that way, what are you seeing as helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a supplier who came over that was really interested in scaling sales that they were currently doing on us on the 1P side. But they had also allocated a portion of their catalog, which was about 500 items, to WFS. And so getting them started on Marketplace. And the challenge for them was scaling without overextending their in-house team. I think we all can attest to the fact that potentially teams are getting smaller while costs are increasing. And so thinking about how to best leverage technology to support what you're trying to do at scale is really important. And so when we first got started with them, we were looking at the marketplace listing specifically, and we were trying to understand how can we improve upon these listings before we activate ad spend. They were not to discredit them, but they were in a poor position. So with lower OLQ scores, and add additional products into WFS to make sure that we were earning that pro seller badge, and we could then from there see that improvement on conversion rate. Because again, the consumer, just like you see with other channels, is looking to get their product as quickly as they can. And so while they completed that aspect, we looked at product-specific campaigns using our AI technology and services teams to implement, again, a 5-to-1 campaign structure. And within that time frame, we were, but prior to that, they were kind of struggling to maintain a 1 campaign per product scenario. And so the introduction of AI gave them this opportunity to better optimize the ideal scenario. And within that, we saw about 146% increase in ad sales within the first 90 days of implementation, and over 1,000% year-over-year growth in terms of revenue. And so I think the challenge with coming over from Marketplace or coming to Marketplace and making sure once you've identified what products you're bringing over and you've nailed down logistics and fulfillment is how do I do this at scale? And without the implementation of AI puts you in a position where you're, again, potentially leaving those dollars on the table.
Gotcha. Well, that's really helpful and a great example. Thank you for giving the concrete examples there. That always helps to ground it for me as well. And there any questions from those who have been in the audience here? While we're waiting on that, one question I'd have, this is obviously an in-depth topic with we could talk for a long time about the nature of this. Where could people learn maybe more? Obviously, you have a lot of experience. Thank you. I'll have to rewatch this. I'm glad we can do this on demand and people can rewatch, because I'll have to rewatch again a few times to continue to digest a bit. Where could someone keep learning from your experience on some of these points?
Yeah, absolutely. So here at Teikametrics, we have a full R&D team, many of which are true AI champions with doctorates in machine learning and AI. And so I would immediately suggest signing up for the Teikametrics community. So our community is available if you go to our website and you sign up for Flywheel. It is a free access to info, frequently asked questions, product updates, events and announcements, and then a lot of content around ebooks and guides. We regularly host webinars and really do a lot of tentpole digital events, but the community is probably the fastest way. And there's an amazing article in the community about how AI has changed the way we sell online. So it's probably the most pertinent direction I'll send everybody as a follow-up to this conversation.
Great. That'd be fantastic. We do have one question here. Do you know how sellers can identify keywords where Walmart pinned some products and sold fulfilled by Walmart? So talking about very specific data points and pinned placements specifically, does that play in to how that happens, or the data you get and how you make informed decisions there?
Yeah, absolutely. So It is my understanding today, and again, the dynamics on the Walmart side changes quite regularly, that they can no longer, like Walmart no longer pins products because of the enhancements to the search term relevancy. However, when we're looking at identifying keywords within our technology, we leverage AI to better understand not just the Walmart suggested keywords that you can see within the self-serve platform, but also what keywords are we seeing ad sales and ad revenue driven from. And so we leverage our platform to surface up keyword opportunities relatively quickly. Because again, kind of as I mentioned before, taking that search term report directly from Walmart, analyzing that data, understanding the trends can be quite cumbersome. And so we leverage the technology to surface up those high value keywords in a quick, succinct way.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for answering that one. I think that's I've got a lot more we could talk about, and certainly if everyone wanted to hang out for another hour, but I know you're also busy, and everyone else is probably have more on their docket as well. Alicia, I really do appreciate you kind of giving such an in-depth analysis of the implications here. We didn't get to really the scenario of a purely native e-commerce brand looking to accomplish, kind of move in, but obviously some of these things could be extrapolated from these other scenarios as well. Any other kind of final thoughts as we're talking about leveraging AI, specifically retail media and Walmart? Anything else come to mind from our discussion?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest piece of advice to every brand that I work with is this is not a set it and forget it type of opportunity, leveraging or using AI, and you have to have a willingness to test multiple strategies. I loved the comment that you made earlier as well. Are we calling this a test just because we're not seeing the results that we need? I think if you're not testing new opportunities, Walmart's consistently rolling out new beta programs eligible for suppliers, and they're making a lot of enhancements to make those same beta programs eligible for sellers. And if you're not testing into those opportunities, you're not going to capture that. And I think the one thing that makes Walmart probably my favorite part about working with Walmart is they're so receptive to feedback. So opting into these beta programs and testing opportunities gives you a direct line of communication with Walmart to say, this ad product is not delivering on the KPIs that I needed to. Here's what I would like to see. I don't see any other player in this space operating in this way, because just like your customers are your main priority, Walmart views every supplier and every seller as their main priority. You are customers of theirs as well. And so taking advantage of these testing opportunities only makes the platform that much more valuable for you as a seller or supplier.
Yeah, very well put. I heard recently now kind of Walmart talking about their team as a people-powered, tech-enabled company. And so that, just like you said, that's how they're even referencing themselves. Well, for any brands, maybe they've been listening and they want to talk about Teikametrics, maybe, is there any way, how would they, the question here was asked, what would you suggest for a supplier that maybe is looking at, is there a crawl, walk, run opportunity with Teika? What would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So many of our partners, we probably to the detriment of ourselves, tend to operate in a bit more of a conservative fashion. So we get brands on board, we are adopting more of a crawl approach within the first 30 days. Our technology is traditionally in data collection mode. And so that is the kind of the most instrumental period when we're working with brands. And then typically at beyond day 30 to day 45 is when we're kind of walking. We're identifying where there are areas we want to expand upon our current campaign structure, layer on additional AI to help maximize that potential. And then it's usually within 45 to 60 days is where you're really running. And so we offer a series of ways in which you can work with us, whether that's just leveraging the technology to get yourselves out of using just self-serve and into a tech platform, all the way up to a full scope hands-on keyword managed service. So if that's an interest of yours, I would highly suggest engaging with me on LinkedIn or emailing me directly. And I can drop that here for the group if you have more questions.
Fantastic. Well, I definitely resonate with the conservative approach, test and iterate and grow. And so I definitely value that. I appreciate that approach and appreciate what Teika is doing. We'll certainly follow up with, and Teika is a sponsor in the channel. And so this won't be the last time people have opportunities to interact with the team in various ways. We're excited about this continuing growing community, excited that Teika is part of the channel here. And so again, Alicia, thank you for your time and sharing with us today. I think this is going to be an ongoing conversations around the iterations around just the implications of what's happening in this revolution, so to speak, with AI and the data we have at our fingertips, where the shopper is, how do we engage? And so I was excited to have this conversation, but excited for future conversations. Thanks for everyone who was on this in this conversation with us today. This will also be posted for replay in the future, and we'll keep you informed of future discussions. But thank you again, Alicia, and look forward to talking again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everyone for your attention, and I can't wait to come back.